Okay, good evening. Welcome to our evening. We'll do a bit of meditation and then Dhamma discussion. We'll give a couple minutes for people to sign in and then get started. Hello, Rick. Happy summer solstice to you as well. Hope you're having a good day. All right. What we're going to do is so this evening we'll do about 30 minutes of meditation, Dhamma discussion, and then time for questions and answers. Hopefully answers. I'll be able to answer your questions to the best of my ability. All right. So, hello, Corona. Hope you're doing well. Having a good evening. So, what we'll do is begin with meditation. If everyone can get in a meditation posture that's comfortable for them, we want to be sitting upright, comfortable, and balanced is the most important thing. And as we sit, we want to bring our attention to our body. Just kind of letting go of whatever happened today, yesterday, any planning, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about the future. With every breath, just come back to the present moment, relaxing the body, relaxing the mind. With each breath, we become more relaxed, feeling the peacefulness, the stillness of the body, the stillness of our heart as it becomes more at ease. When we breathe in, just bringing attention to the body, the stillness of the body. And you can bring your attention to your hands resting in your lap, or your feet, how they feel touching the ground. Just bring your mind back to the sensation of the body, that point in your body. And focus all your attention. the mind wanders, just bringing it back to that focus point of your body. Observe the changing nature of the sensations of the body. See the constant state of change. And as we begin to bring this meditation to a close, take a few minutes to reflect on your own ethical behavior. Reflect on times when your own goodness reflect on times we've acted in a wholesome manner, and see how it brightens the mind, our heart. Reflect on the goodness of your heart. Reflect on the brightness that brings. And when it's steadily come out of meditation, bring yourself back to the present moment. There's the bell. So, welcome everyone. Hope everybody had a good meditation. Can somebody give me a glass of water? Sorry, I had to ask for some water. Thank you. So, what I wanted to talk about tonight was what we were doing right at the end of the meditation is our sila, our morality. And before I get started on that, first let's pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namassami. I also want to thank Bhante Sudaso and someone who are traveling right now. Without them, I wouldn't be here, but also this broadcast wouldn't be here. So we definitely give our thanks to our original teacher, the Buddha, the Lord Buddha, and those who carry out the Dhamma and spread the Dhamma. We're all very fortunate to live in a time when we can access and have the Dhamma. So I said I'm Bhante Mettiko. For those who don't know me. And what I wanted to talk about was sila, which sometimes, unfortunately, I think we move beyond that. Thank you so much. I had to get some water. Often we forget the importance of sila, or we forget sometimes to reflect on the brightness that it brings to our mind, the advantages. And one of the things I'll do tonight, hopefully I'll have time to go through a sutta that it really addresses the purpose of sila. And I think sometimes we may get lost and all these other things we get lost in the world. And the sila, our sila is our guide, our protection. It serves the purpose of always bringing us back to the original teachings. We may get off course sometimes, but if we keep our sila, we can stay on the course. And if we get off course a little bit, our sila brings us back. So, our basic, what's expected of all, I think of all people, not just what's expected, but if we want to live a life of harmony, we have the 5 precepts. And one of the things I love about the precepts is throughout the sutras, the Buddha would always bring it up. Like, is this like the value of sila and pointing out to people, like, this is just basic goodness. This is just, no one can argue like, oh no, I do think we should do these things, which are unwholesome. So the first precept, not to kill any living being. I think we can all agree that that's a good way to live. And even live in a way that causes no harm. It's a way to take in the precept. You think about it. I commit to living in a way of peace. No harm to living beings. And then it's all living beings. Human, big, small. I'm laughing because the cat's coming in. So I'm talking about Sila. He's going to try and cause some destruction, maybe. Here he is. He's going to cause no harm. But we can agree the value and the safety of that. We have the cat. The cat knows, like, this is a safe place. And I really think when we live in that way of harmlessness, people can sense that, animals can sense that. And in our own minds, it gives us a peace, a tranquility. The next precept. Not to take what's not freely given. Not to steal. Again, think about, man, never having to worry about like somebody taking something from us. What a comfortable and safe way to live. And it is. Living at the monastery. It's not that Mindashkas have anything that people can really take, but it's such a time and a place of like peace. You don't have to worry about like, oh, what's going to happen to this, or somebody taking something. And the opposite of taking is giving. So we live in a way of not taking, but we also live in a way of giving, of generosity. And generosity is a way of just brightening the mind. And sometimes people think generosity, oh, it means like giving money or giving that. No, generosity sometimes it's just giving kindness, giving service, helping out of the monastery. Here at Empty Club, we're very fortunate. We have people that come and stay, and I was thinking today, like, how generous of these people giving their time and helping at the monastery. We're also very fortunate to have lots of supporters and people that have been at the monastery. You see just the beauty of the grounds. It's all from generosity. The next of the precepts is refraining from sexual misconduct. And so this is another way of being, living in a way that we don't harm someone or people with our sexual activities or sexual conduct. And it's important to see how, I think, the Buddha never said, and the point of, oh, this is only between, sexual relationships should only be between a man or a woman. It's about harming someone outside of a committed relationship. If you're in a committed relationship, you're committed to that person. Living in a way that's truthful. Living in a way that doesn't cause harm to anyone. We can all see the destruction of breaking someone's trust in a sexual relationship. It can cause a lot of destruction, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. And so the next precept is to refrain from lying, which I think maybe just like stealing everyone. I don't steal. Like, I hope people aren't going into stores and shoplifting and stealing or stealing from their neighbor. The same with lying. People like, I don't lie, but as you really reflect upon that precept and that idea, what does it really mean to live truthfully in the world? So we don't tell white lies. People say, no, it's for other people's benefit. Like, if someone asked me, oh, how's this look? You know, how's my robe look? If it's falling off, you know. People tell me the truth. Like, I asked other monastics, I'm like, I mean, you need to check your robe, you need to fix your robe. They're not like, oh, your robe looks great. Don't worry about it. Right, it's true. So there's no such thing as like a white lie which is harmless. And even though we have the intention of trying to make somebody feel better, it can cause some just discomfort in our own minds. And so, you know, when somebody asks like, oh, how's my new haircut look? And you think it looks terrible. I'm not telling you to say, oh man, that looks really bad, but you know, wow. How do you like it? There's a way of saying things. And also, with that precept, the Buddha's given us, and all the precepts, the Buddha's gives the basics, you know. But really think about right speech. Yeah, it's not lying. But also take that further. Speaking in a mind of kindness, the way of kindness. Speech can be very destructive sometimes. It's one of the precepts, I think, that we have to be very careful with. And how we speak. How do we speak with our bodies? Do we, oh, I didn't say anything, but I just clenched my fists. How do we use speech? How do we use our bodies? And then the last precept, which everyone likes to talk about or think about, I shouldn't say everybody, but there's the precept of managing cat control. That's what the cats are in. Refraining from drinks and drugs that cause heedlessness. So the reason I kind of said something about that or joked is sometimes people say, well, I only have one drink. Or I do this in, moderation. Nowhere in the sutras does the Buddha say, well, you can have one drink. Or you should have, it's okay to have a glass of wine or, with dinner. The Buddha doesn't say that. And it's been kind of interesting to me I've recently seen studies talk about any consumption of alcohol can be harmful or is harmful. And so really taking this, I gave the example of the opposite of stealing is generosity. Living a life of complete sobriety. What does that do to the mind? How does it impact the mind? It really brightens the mind. It can be very, very powerful. And so I encourage everyone to think about and really bring these precepts into our lives and then think about, what does it mean? What does it mean for me? I gave the example of stealing, not taking what is not freely given. What does that mean? Yeah, not shoplifting. Obviously, do not shoplift. It's a bad thing. But does that mean, how many people, myself included, I've been at work man, I need this pen. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna take this pen. I didn't. Or, do we take people's time? Do we take people's trust? I gave the example of not lying. Do we lie in ways? Do we present ourselves in ways that are not true, that fool people? Do we try and act in ways or present ourselves in ways that are deceptive? To steal people's trust? What's the thing on now? I heard about people catfishing another person. If I understand that correctly, that's people pretending to be someone they're not. And man, it's breaking a lot of precepts. So again, as with all of Buddhist teachings, I think I encourage people to explore those. What does it feel like to really take that in and see how it brightens the mind? All of a sudden, it creates a safety for ourselves, but it creates a safety for those around us. Think about if maybe we have someone like that. Someone we know who could always tell the truth to us. No matter what they say, it's always truthful. What is that like? How do we feel when we're around that person? Oh, I can always go to so-and-so. I may not like what they say, but I know they're going to tell me the truth. Your robe's falling down. You need to adjust your robe. So I encourage people to be that person. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy to be 100%. As you start to explore this and you start to push this, you see, I shouldn't say push, as you cultivate these wholesome qualities, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it really goes against the grain, you know? But as we do it, we begin to see how it really lightens the mind and brightens the mind and brightens the heart. And so I do want to talk about, the Buddha's words on this. This is in a number of discourses in Kutta Nikaya 11.1. I encourage you to look the sutta up, but I'm going to go through it. And it's Bhante Mettiko defines it as, what is the purpose? And here we have Ananda going to the Buddha and asking, well, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of ethical conduct? And you'll see, as the Buddha talks about, it leads to complete liberation. And so he asks, what's the purpose and benefit of skillful ethics? And the Buddha says, Ananda, having no regrets is the purpose and benefit of skillful ethics. That sounds pretty good. Like, no regrets. Wow, man, what a good way to live. And then he says, well, what's the benefit of having no regrets? And the Buddha says, joy. Joy is the purpose and benefit of having no regrets. And what's the purpose and benefit of joy? And the Buddha says, rapture. So again, we start to think about what's happening with the mind. In meditation, sometimes in meditation, people say, oh, nothing's really happening with my meditation. I've been meditating. I'm having these difficulties. But they're not necessarily following precepts. So it's going back to the precepts. And we're seeing the benefit of having this bright mind that the precepts can give. And the Buddha is pointing this out, rapture. And then Ananda says, what's the benefit of rapture? Tranquility. And then what's the purpose of tranquility? Bliss. What's the purpose of bliss? Immersion. What's the benefit of immersion? Truly knowing and seeing. Again, we start with ethics. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila always forms a basic foundation. Everything is built off of Sila. And again, the Buddha says, truly knowing and seeing. And then Ananda asks, what is the benefit of truly knowing and seeing? What happens when we truly see the impermanence? When we see not self, and when we see the dukkha, when we see and we're able to see the impermanent, we don't take things as permanent anymore. We see the impermanence. The Buddha talks about the benefit of delusion is dispassion. But what is the benefit? What is the purpose and benefit of dispassion? Knowledge and vision of freedom is the purpose and benefit of dispassion. Complete liberation, that's the benefit. So we start with our sila, and it leads to complete liberation, complete freedom of the heart. And so again, the Buddhist goes through and he summarizes. The purpose and benefit of skillful ethics is not having regrets. Joy is the purpose and benefit of not having regrets. Rapture is the purpose and benefit of joy. Tranquility is the purpose and benefit of rapture. Bliss is the purpose and benefit of tranquility. Immersion is the purpose and benefit of bliss. Truly knowing and seeing is the purpose and benefit of immersion. Disillusionment is a purpose and benefit of truly knowing and seeing. Dispassion is a purpose and benefit of disillusionment. And knowledge and vision of freedom is a purpose and benefit of dispassion. So Ananda, skillful ethics progressively lead to the highest. So there we have, again, we have that Buddha saying and outlining the purpose, not only the purpose, but the importance of Siva. So again, I encourage everyone to use their own Siva, both as living skillfully in the world, but also recalling their Siva in meditation to brighten the mind, to brighten the body, and really brighten the heart, because it does lead to that liberation. So I just wanted to share a couple of those thoughts, my thoughts on that. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Now's your time. I'll do my best to answer them. And you can even ask, I mean, it's a good opportunity to ask, well, what about this situation? What about our freaking one is, I did talk a little bit about, is it okay to have one drink? No. I would say no, there's nothing in support of that suggests that do that. I also want to say, some people say, well, the middle way is moderation. The middle way isn't moderation, because there's certain things you can't moderate. There's no moderation for unwholesome behavior. There's no moderation for being racist. You can't be like, well, I'm going to practice moderation in racism. I'm going to practice moderation in sexism. I'm going to practice moderation in homophobia. Like, it doesn't work. So the middle way, some people will say, oh, the middle way is moderation. It's not moderation. The middle way is avoiding the two extremes. So. This is my 2 cents on that. And if there's no questions or anything, we'll end the evening. Any questions from the audience?
Bhante, can you elaborate on the 8 precept, one of the 8 precepts, the purification and entertainment part?
So here we have one of the yogis doing. Her is asking about the 8 precepts. And again, the 5 is just straightforward for living in the world. And typically, people will take the 8 precepts on a pasada days, and also when staying at the monastery. And so Shelley was asking, well, what about the precept of, which is one of the 8, beautification and entertainment? And are you asking about what does that mean, or why is that in place?
Oh, I was just wondering, like, what does it mean? Like, what does it cover?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first one, beautification. The other part of that precept is wearing jewelry, adornments, beautification. That would include makeup, things to beautify the body. So if we think about those things, how do we, it's pretty, I mean, we all do it. In the sense of Western, it's like we all do it. I don't do it. But it's pretty normal part of the one's, like, I'm going to comb my hair, make my hair all pretty. I'm going to put on makeup. I'm going to do all these things to beautify my body. And the Buddha is pointing to, no, moving away from all those things, like that might take us away from, is that yourself? Like you're trying to present yourself in a different way, or we're moving in a way outside of that identity. We're moving in a way, I don't want to say a false front, but in a way we're kind of denying the natural state of the body. Like it's just a body, right? And we're becoming comfortable with just what it is. We're not trying to beautify, make it something that it's not. And I shouldn't say something that it's not, because makeup isn't necessarily that. But we're comfortable with ourselves. We become comfortable with what this is. And we're not trying to move beyond that and present it in a way that is something that's not. Or our bodies are subject to aging. And so sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to age. And so I'm going to put on Rogaine, right? I'm going to do all these things, right? Which, I don't know, I can't really contain that. Maybe Rogaine's, I don't want to get in. Here's a better example. I'm not condemning anyone who does this. I'm not trying to talk bad. I'm thinking in my own life. Oh, I'm going to wear a toupee. Right, you're laughing. But all of a sudden, I'm just denying the reality. Like, my body's aged, my hair's fallen out. I was bald before. Like, but it's the reality of the body. Our body's age, our hair falls out, and things like that. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't take care of ourselves. We should watch our body. It doesn't mean, like, I'm not saying go around and like don't wash your hair and things like that. But no, we should take care of ourselves. But at the same time, don't deny the reality of the body. And in terms of entertainment, sometimes it can become a distraction. And I've even heard people talk about entertainment becoming almost like the fifth precept, like a drug. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to watch Netflix. I'm going to watch a series on Netflix. I don't want to do anything. And if we look at that precept of the fifth precept of causing heedlessness, do we engage in entertainment to escape? Do we engage in these activities to get away from reality? And I've been there like, oh man, I had a tough, horrible day. I just want to like zone out. Like I want to go home and watch some stupid TV show or something. This is a lay person. So that's where that precept's coming in. And it can become a distraction and stir up the mind. Sometimes I can remember years ago working at school, working with, we have this child who's having some difficulties. And the parent, and then it comes out like, oh, I'm letting them play like Call of Duty. It's like a little kid. It's not good for the mind, this constant stirring up of the mind. And then we try and sit down and meditate, the mind's agitated. And so that's where that idea, that precept of entertainment is also coming in. When we're constantly grasping or moving outside of ourselves, the mind's not stable. Yes, I am. Okay, and there's a question here from Joe. Hello, Joe. I hope you're doing well. When you're in the city, I'm going to show this so everyone can see it, and then I'll read it. When you're in the city, how do you practice when you hear music in the environment? Precepts and sila. is there any fault in hearing music, or is the fault in choosing to play music? Well, I guess, I mean, there's no fault. Like, there's no fault in, you go to a store and they're playing music, and you're just, like, there's no fault in that. And so, how do I practice? Sometimes, honestly, I don't even hear it. Like, I just don't pay attention to it. And if it's becoming predominant, or I'm hearing the sound, sometimes you just hear it as a sound. Music has a deep pull, and it can pull the mind away really quickly. But sometimes it's just hearing the sound and letting it pass through. But also, the Buddha talked about sensory stream. There's a song playing, and you just let it come and go. Don't attach to it. The other thing, earlier this evening, one of the yogis here asked about, well, how do you give up all these things? And I was saying, you don't really give up anything, you gain something. Sometimes people think renunciation means you give up something. Other precepts means you're giving up something. You're taking something away. But in reality, what you're gaining a peace of mind. And so, as one practices, there's one may develop, they don't have an interest in music. And music is no longer kind of holds that attraction or that pull. We may recognize how music might pull us from our mindfulness or our peace, and so we don't engage in it. And then your question is, there a fault in choosing to play? Is there a fault in choosing to play music? Are you saying to play an instrument or to play music like I'm going to turn on the radio? I don't know which one you're talking about. And if you're following the 5 precepts, it doesn't necessarily following the 5 precepts. I will say Bhante Mettiko really recommends, and I can see where that comes in, refraining from music, because it's so powerful and it can pull you in those ways. So just explore your own mind. Explore, what does listening to music do to it? And I think sometimes after a while, as one practices, one loses interest in those things. I used to listen to music a lot. I actually worked at a record store. So music was like a big part of my life. But, it kind of loses its grip as one practices, so to speak. I hope that answered your questions, Joe. And I do want to say good evening to everyone that's signed in. And if there's no other questions, I'll give a couple seconds for questions. And if not, we'll go ahead and end for this evening. Any questions? Everyone's entertained by the cat. There's a thing, when you're at monasteries for a long time, you don't have music, you don't have TV. So like, I can remember being at a monastery when it was really quiet. I saw like a car going by and it's like, wow, there's a car. It's entertainment. One night someone broke a glass. I was like, wow, this is exciting. Your mind kind of changes. It's interesting how the mind always wants some, I shouldn't say always, how the mind seeks entertainment. Oh, I missed that. And we have a comment here from Louise. Agreed, music can distract from mindfulness, especially negative music or music with catchy negative lyrics. It's very true. Music has a great pull sometimes. And especially very negative music, and we gotta be careful because it's just like, what are we putting into our minds? What are we watching? What are we reading? I've been meditating. I remember for some reason meditating, and all of a sudden these books were coming into my mind, these stories that I hadn't thought about, I read like years ago. So people think sometimes, oh, it doesn't affect my mind, but it can leave an imprint. And just to clarify, if you're getting frustrated and irritated by music being played everywhere, a big thing is the confusion on not understanding where the danger is and how to practice. I mean, you're right, Joe. Wherever you go, this is one thing I observed. There's music everywhere. Like for some reason, you go to the gas station, there's music. You go to any place, there's music playing. And so part of it is just kind of seeing it, what it is a sound. And watch your mind, Oh, this is frustrating. This is getting frustrating to me. But you can't let it, don't let aversion, I can't believe these people, don't let those things seep into your mind, And sometimes it's just practicing sensory restraint, acknowledgement. I have to go to the store and there's going to be music. It might be really loud. And it's just what it is, That's the society we live in. And we just live with that peace of mind. Let the sound arise and fall away. But it's not your fault, people play music. And there's nothing, you can't avoid, I'm not going to, I could see where you wouldn't go to a restaurant because, they play loud music all the time or something like that. Sensory restraint is important. What are skillful means with our relationship with pets, like Teddy? Well, animals, like, they're living creatures. So, we treat them with kindness. Animals can be good teachers of patience, teachers of metta. Some people find the metta. But the most important thing is, just as we treat all living creatures, we treat them with kindness, metta, all those things. We always treat Teddy with kindness, even though he likes to cause trouble sometimes. You can see the dukkha arise in his search for his sensual pleasures. He likes lying in the sun. But pets are good teachers sometimes. Well, with that, I think, unless there's any questions here, going once, going twice, going 3 times. I wish all of you much merit and happiness and success in the practice. And again, I encourage you to follow these precepts. Let's see. Rick says, caring for my 3 dogs is a regular part of acting with love and service. Yeah, and that brings joy. Yeah, there's a part of self. We give up a part of self taking care of pets sometimes. And Rick says, I find I cling to them more than most other things. Yeah, I mean, sometimes pets bring, they bring out our love, and we do get attached to pets sometimes. But our interaction with pets is the same as anything with the Dhamma. We work with it. We work with caring for them. And there's something. It's important to remember being a Buddhist doesn't mean like becoming a robot or like Spock. I have no feelings. Like, I really care for this. And I think it's better to live with a heart of love and care than the opposite. I don't like pets. I don't like animals. So I don't like people. So I'm just going to, like push them aside. Aversion. Kindness is always the way to go. So, watch your mind and as you do with that. It's caring and loving and kindness are important things in the world. Did you have a question?
I just had a comment. My dog died recently, and I was noticing just how much my family was suffering over it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of noticing that I really didn't suffer over it. Like I was noticing that I was having like aversion with interacting with him, knowing that like he was gonna die soon. And that I basically had kind of like, I think mentally like he was like dead to me like a few weeks before like he died. And I think that like that was kind of, I could have had a little more like compassion or been more engaged with him leading up to that. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it just shows me how the middle way is tricky because that you're causing yourself suffering, like being overly attached to something that has a much shorter lifetime than we typically do. But it's no good to be like cold-hearted either.
Yeah, well, yes, it's very difficult when we have a person we love, an animal we love that dies. And trying to find the right way to respond. And it's difficult. It can challenge our practice. It can challenge our heart. And we build upon that. We build upon how we respond and all those times. It's also important always to remember, like, we're not enlightened either. I'm not enlightened. And how do we practice in those tough times? And that is why we practice. We follow Buddhist teachings. We meditate. We do all those things. So when we're faced with those really challenging circumstances, our heart responds in a way respond in a way that's in line with the Buddhist teachings. Thank you for sharing that. It's always, it's going through that multiple times, having, as a lay person, having pets, dying, being with pets as they die, was always difficult. Thank you for Louisa. And again, thank you, and I hope everyone has a beautiful night, and let's take a few minutes, a couple seconds to dedicate all this merit from your wonderful questions and comments, meditation dedicated to all those in our life, all those that are close to our heart, deceased, living. Thank you again, speaking pastors today. He wants to make one last appearance before the evening. So tomorrow morning, we have a sutta study with Aya Suvijana will be here. And then Thursday night, we have a broadcast from one of the monastics from Sri Lanka. And then Friday morning, sutta study again. And then Friday evening, monk chat, where you can ask all your questions related to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Anything you've been dying to ask, like, do monks wear toothpaste? No, they don't. And any questions? And if you're local, Saturday evening, we have here at the monastery Dhamma talk and meditation, and then Sunday, another program as well. Good night to everyone, and I wish everyone peace, and see you soon. Sukyoto.